Playboy Mansion many times. And
Yes?
good friends of Hefner, and we had a lot of fun up there.
Yeah. What was your parents' reaction when they saw the first appearance?
In Playboy?
Yeah.
I think they've never seen it. They've only seen the cover.
Oh, they've only seen the cover.
Of course.
What?
Yeah, of
well,
course.
if Carol was like advocating for it, she's probably like,
No,
Pamela, I don't know if you did that right.
no.
I would have done it differently.
She did give birth to me. She's seen me naked.
Yes. When you had the bat opportunity right there, did you ever hear the Golden Globes? It's a few weeks old, but there was the Fiji Water girl. Did you ever hear that? No. There was a girl. She was like working for Fiji Water. She was in the background. She photobombed all the celebrities, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, she's famous, right?"
Wow.
But then she didn't capitalize on that. You back then, not knowing the industry like you know then. Did anyone advise you what you should do to be like, hey, you've got this notoriety now, move with
No one's ever advised me, and I've never listened to anybody. So I'm kind of unmanageable. I've just been kind of freestyling and doing it my own way, and I never really have been an ambitious person or a competitive person. I've been really fortunate to kind of just wing it and have fun and always try and bring some meaning to what I'm doing, and been very fortunate and lucky, but I'm not a real driven, calculated person. My kids are, and they're in the business. One's an actor and one's a musician, and they're completely different than I am, but...
Do they ask you for advice?
Never.
No.
Are you kidding?
Mom, what do you think?
No, they tell me, Mom, you could be so famous, you could be so rich like Kim Kardashian. I said, that's the last thing I want to be.
Yes.
Is rich and famous like Kim Kardashian. I want to be doing exactly what I'm doing. I want to be using my platform, and I love Baywatch. I would have been on the beach anyway, so I was happy that they paid me. I got to bring my dog, and then I got to defend animal rights and environmental rights, and everything I learned I applied to my life, and now I'm even speaking at festivals in Europe, at film festivals, but mostly about activism. I'd love to do a really great film one day, but I've been so lucky so far to kind of get away with murder in a bikini, so I haven't really had to apply myself to too much as an artist, but as an activist, that's really what I'm most proud of.
When it comes to activism and artistry, what has been your guiding light then? If you say you haven't been ambitious, you haven't been calculating, what drives you to do all these things? Because if we look, like when I talk just about like your resume moving up here, it's been very diverse, very eclectic. So what took you to each place and to seize each opportunity as it came up?
Well, as an artist, it's always been it's just this funny, kind of strange, like even with Baywatch, I was famous before I walked through the door because I've never been on an audition, but I never knew where Marina Del Rey was, and finally when I went there with somebody, they gave me the job because they could never get me there. I was famous for never showing up. Just funny kind of things like that. So, but as an activist, I think I grew up on an island. I really respected nature. We had a lot of animals, and I had an aunt who was deaf, who loved feral cats, and they kind of followed her around, and I was always fascinated with this kind of other communication with animals. I had an affinity with them, and so I wanted to share the attention with something more meaningful. I was sick of talking about my boyfriends and my boobs all the time, and Baywatch was in 150 countries. I didn't even know there were 150 countries back then, and so I've been able to really use my platform and learn. I never went to university, but I have really smart friends, incredible people, and I get into doors. I've met world leaders. I've been able to create animal welfare laws where there were none, and talk to people that are really influential, and I just keep on spreading the word and keep on talking. And I've been going crazy on Twitter lately, which is kind of fun.
In what way? To like attack, to fight back, to clap back on trolls?
No, to fight back. Just for information that I'm learning and talking about. It is a revolution. I talk about a sensual revolution. How I wrote a book called Lust for Love. It was supposed to be called The Sensual Revolution, which is about this human interaction, still having human connections, because it's so easy to kind of get lost in technology, and talking about romance. I spoke at Cambridge and Oxford, and had so many students come up to me and with tears in their eyes saying, thank God someone's talking about this, because they want to be with someone for the rest of their lives. So it's kind of a romantic struggle. I talk about the environment, and I try and help my friends who are saving the rainforest. I have a lot of friends who are doing very incredible work, like in Julian Assange, and he's taught me a lot. and I've met a lot of incredible people through him.
What has he taught you?
Well, we talk about when I used to visit him, because now no one can visit him. He's been cut off, and they're really trying to break him. And but when I used to go there, I used to bring him vegan food, and we would talk about everything from, you know, first of all, world issues, of course, but jealousy, the Bible. We would talk about poetry. He was curious about my family. He would talk to me about his family. Just, he's very human. I think people don't realize, you know, he's just not a computer screen, and I think that was part of my role in his life, maybe, is to help humanize him, because he's so funny. He's a testament to the human spirit, to be in that room for 7 years, and it's a tiny little room, and to be able to still joke and have fun and really be passionate about what he does. He could have done anything with his life. He could have made, if it was about money, he could have been one of the wealthiest people in the world, but he sacrificed a lot to share truthful information with people.
You talk about how he's been misunderstood. How do you feel you have been misunderstood in your career and in your transition to from artist to activist?
Well, I like being misunderstood. So I think it's good not to. I think it's a little bit more mysterious. It gets you in places maybe where average person can't get into, or maybe a politician, or a, you know, I have a really good friend, Vivienne Westwood, who's obviously super intelligent, and she's always so frustrated with not being able to reach people, and she always says to me, "You're our secret weapon." You know, so I like to be the bridge between. I also, you know, as an activist, I don't like to be very extreme, even though I do have extreme views. I do have extreme wishes for people to be, everyone in the world to be vegan and all sorts of things, but I also appreciate people who are trying to be better, eat less meat, use less plastic. I'm not going to throw somebody out because they're not like me, you know. I'm curious about how other people live too, and not anyone's better than anybody else. But I do think humans think that they were put on this earth to gobble everything up, and we all need to share the earth together, and everyone has a role to play and has a right to be here from everything.
I feel like there's a lot of things that you stand for and you stand behind when you have that opportunity to take in all of these things that are going on. How do you decide, how do you approach informing yourself, especially when there's so much fake news, negative news? How do you know, I need to be informed? How do we stay informed? And how can your process inspire us to figure out what we should get behind? Because you get behind so many causes, but I'm overwhelmed. I don't even do it. I'm overwhelmed by the number of causes you're behind.
I know I'm pretty busy, but I think, you know, people ask me before, how can I be an activist? I said, well, you're an activist if you read a book. You're an activist if you go to a museum. Just stay engaged in the world and care about people and things outside of yourself. I think empathy is lacking these days, and you know, just do the best you can. And we all have a different purpose, and it's kind of an artistic process where we can paint our own picture, make our own movie, and it's just more fun to have a meaningful life. You know, when I talk to people, I talk to them like I talk to my kids, and I'm just so excited about their little lives and being able to watch them, because really, being you is the hardest thing in the world to be. Like E.E. Cummings says, when everyone's trying to tell you to be somebody else, to just be a pioneer and not part of the bewildered herd. You know, and also I think we're stronger in pairs. I think that romance is really important, and relationships are really important. My parents have been together since they were 16, 14, still madly in love. I mean, I think that's pretty rare, and so I wish that for my kids, I wish that for people, but it's tough. Too many choices these days, and love is hard work.
You've had a fair number of relationships. What's the advice that you have for yourself? You see your parents have been together for so long, but you've had experiences of a different nature. What is the advice without us reading this moment?
You know, the thing is, people think I've been in a lot of relationships. I've been married 4 times. That's taken up a lot of my life. Yeah. You know, so I don't know if I'm a really promiscuous person. I like to be married. I like to be in a committed relationship. I have my boundaries though, and things don't always work out, but I keep trying. And I love that my kids are romantics. And I think it takes a very brave person to be a romantic these days, because you put your heart on the line and you have to be vulnerable. And I think even to be a good lover, you have to be brave. You know, we can just have multiple people run through our lives, or we can really get to know someone and be intimate and find out what really makes them feel good. And be intimate with someone is a scary thing. To risk losing somebody, sometimes people they'd rather be alone. And I think that's part of the, the conspiracy theory, but I think it would be really convenient for even governments to have people just sitting in front of computer screens or playing PlayStation all day and not getting out in the world with it as a couple and trying to make the world a better place, because that could start a revolution.
Any advice for finding the right person or the right persons? Because sometimes I feel like you don't have one soulmate. You might have many soulmates. But how do you put yourself in that position, especially as a world traveler, or even just right here at this convention? How do we know when we find that right person, or how do we put ourselves out there to find
Well,
the right
I think
person?
it's the romantic thing. Obviously, you want to meet someone from across the room and, catch somebody's eye, on the train or in the metro, whatever you want to do. Of course, those are all kind of romantic things, and to stay open to that. I don't, I hate to say, I wouldn't want to think that you're going to find your soulmate on Tinder or something, but you also can't deny that the world is the way it is, and you can't deny technology and what's going on. So somehow there has to be a way. Somehow there has to be a way, and I think just to keep on trying and to meet people, because we were isolating ourselves. That's to get out in the world. Go to places where you are, museums and things like that. You can find somebody else that cares about the same things that you do, or someone completely different, like move to a different country like I did. Oh my God, I didn't learn a new language. Just keep learning, keeps you young.
Let's open it up to the audience. If you guys want to stand up at the microphone and be prepared for that. While they do that, you know what? Veganism is now not such a thing where it's like, oh my God, what? But it's almost like oh my God, how do I get involved? How do I do that? For me, I am horrible at feeding myself. If I had a child, the child would die because I can't even feed myself. But I would like to be vegan. My brother, my sister-in-law is vegan, so he's trying to switch to that. But because I'm not as responsible, I don't know where to start. So how could we easily ease into it?
Well, I mean, it's little by little. I don't know how much meat you eat, but if you could just eat less, that helps the planet. It depends on what your goals are. I mean, you eat for health reasons. That's one thing. Obviously, it's healthier for you to be vegan. And there's studies and movies. I actually just produced a film with James Cameron it's called Game Changers, and it's about busting the myth of men having to be vegan, because the strongest men in the world are vegan, and super athletes, that's their kind of secret weapon, is that they're vegan, and all sorts of things. So, I mean, there's more restaurants, and there's more more people are vegan. There's more alternatives to cooking, and just eat more vegetables. That's easier. Use less plastic. Cook at home more.
As you travel the world, and you did mention restaurants, or some that stand out, vegan restaurants that you're like, if you are in this area, you should go there.
I can't remember the names of all of them, but there's vegan restaurants everywhere. I was just in Graz in Austria, and I spoke at the Elevate Festival, and it was an amazing, amazing vegan restaurant there I was at, but I don't know what the name is. Sorry. I don't know. They're easy to find.
We'll have to Google it. You did mention a book that you wrote. It was called Lust for Love.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? You wrote it with a rabbi.
Yes.
Did you know this rabbi?
I met a rabbi, walked into a bar. It sounds like the beginning of a joke. I know, it's very strange. But I met him. He knew a neighbor of mine who was a very, and they were talking about what a good mother I was, and he was interested in how my image was this, and how my reality was something different, and he was curious to meet me, so I met him. And he gave me the best advice about relationships, and he really felt similar to me. And he thought, well, if he wrote a book, it's just a rabbi kind of preaching to somebody, but if I wrote a book with him, and I felt the same way, there must be other people that feel the same way, and maybe me speaking about the romantic life would reach people differently than if he did. And we really agreed on we disagreed on many things too, but the things we agreed on were shocking and amazing, and so that's why we wrote the book.
When we talk about partnerships, obviously here being at Fan Expo Vancouver, we should discuss Stan Lee. How did you get connected with Stan Lee, and what was your working relationship like with him?
Well, my brother introduced me to Stan Lee. I don't know how they met, but I remember my brother bringing Stan Lee to the set of VIP, I think, and he wanted to do this cartoon called Stripperella, which is a stripper at night and a superhero later at night. I thought that was funny.
Busy lady.
Funny. And he was so fun. He was so much fun. But he actually, the reason I was so busy, I was doing Barbed Wire and Baywatch, and I was married to Tommy, which was a whole other career. And and having 2 babies. And at that point, he actually wanted to have nudity in the cartoons, and I didn't really want to do that because I couldn't really be in control of how that would be portrayed. And so we kind of had a little disagreement about that. But he was really fun, right? And we just did a couple seasons of it. But I know I don't know how many episodes are out there of it, but it was great to meet him. It's genius.
Barbed Wire before that. Was Barbed Wire before that?
I think so. I don't know.
How did you get invited to be a part of that? Did you have to audition, or did they come to you and say, "We got this story. We want."
No, they came to me. They came to me to do the film, and I actually worked with a really great director, Adam Rifkin. It was going to be a very kind of cult, kind of underground. It was a very simple script, and then I went to Cannes with Tommy, and it was just such a crazy experience. Boats were running into each other, people were falling into the water, there was thousands of paparazzi, and so people saw how much attention I was getting, so they rewrote the script. They got a different director, they kind of tried to commercialize it more, and it kind of, I don't even know what it was about anymore. It was changed every single day. There was more people on the set, and changing it in 5 months, and it was just mayhem to put it together. So it went from this kind of culty kind of movie to a big kind of commercial disaster, actually. Like at the end, they changed it so many times, it was difficult. But it was fun. I learned how to use so many weapons and ride a motorcycle.
Can you still do those things now?
I'm sure I could, yes,
Right.
if I needed to.
So we took you out there right now. We're like, yo, these weapons, you'd just be able to like take us all out.
Yeah.
Okay. That experience.
Protect myself.
Sorry, what was that?
I could protect myself, yes, I'm very
Okay,
a little
everybody be
kickboxing
aware of
thrown in there too.
Did that influence how you approach other work? Because even though Stripperella was after, did that influence that when you're like, no, I need to be more in control?
Well, no, I had babies, and they were the most important thing to me. I quit Baywatch when I had Brandon, that I was pregnant with Dylan, and it was just too difficult. I had babies to have babies. My mom and dad came down to California for 3 years to help me with the boys, and that was my focus. I wasn't really focused on wanting to do film or be away from them. Even though I was, I worked a lot, but as they got older, I realized this is more important, and I want to focus on animal rights and all the causes I believe in, and so it's really worked out perfect. And now my kids are grown, they're 21 and 22, it's amazing. And Brandon has a great career as an actor and director, and Dylan is a musician, us Midnight Kids, and they are financially independent, so Mom moved to the south of France. So I always knew I'd live in France when my kids were older, so that's where I am, and I'm having a great time and really proud of them and watching their careers unfold. I just love it. I'm so happy to be home. I like coming to these events because I like to actually meet people. Like I said before, and what I wrote about in my book is just meeting people is becoming a lost art. And so it's nice to see people one-on-one. I think you make a big difference if you can make a difference in one person's life, too. They carry that with them, and when you meet them, you look them in the eye, and you have a connection. If it's about veganism, if it's about animals, if it's about anything, we can't forget that. That's important. And it's nice to be home. Beautiful Vancouver.
And it's a nice day too, because usually
it's sunny and beautiful.
Running,
It's perfect.
yeah, it is a good day. But you're inside here because we can't see. If you do want to ask a question, you can go up to the microphone and just let us know if you have any questions. Because Pamela would like to answer some of the audience questions as well. But Baywatch. So you did that for how many years?
5, I think.
5. What was the biggest thing you took away from that experience? From working with the cast, or just the experience of doing the work?
I think, well, it's the best job in the world. Like I said, I'm a beach girl. I love being on the beach, and I got to bring my dog Star with me, and it was a really wonderful time. And I'm from here, so I think we all fantasize about what California is like. And the water's a lot colder, and it's not as blue, and it's not as warm as we made it look. We had to overcome the goosebumps and pretend it was warm. And I actually love the show, and I'm glad that it's being streamed again and people can see it all over again. There's this whole resurgence of Baywatch fans that are young, and because it's a really sweet show, and now it takes a lot to get people's attention, and I think that television show was very cute, and it had little cute messaging, and when my kids were smaller, they probably would have loved that show.
Right over there, you have a question, sir? Yes. My name is David. I just have a quick question. So obviously you're a strong activist and very passionate about that. And as an entertainer, you kind of have a platform where you're more visible. So when it comes to many different causes that you're involved in, how do you choose that to make sure that's an organization that is really something that is going to have an impact? I saw a list of many of the different ones you're involved in, so I'm just curious, how do you choose or not choose to not get involved in some of those?
Well, I have my own foundation, the Pamela Anderson Foundation, and I work with people that are really on the front lines. I was the international chair of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, so I was involved in all the weekly meetings, and I know every dollar that you donate to Sea Shepherd goes to saving the whales and making the oceans, to clean up the oceans and to make sure we have biodiversity in our oceans, because if the oceans die, we die. And so Paul Watson's a really good friend of mine. Vivienne Westwood introduced me to Cool Earth, who are helping Indigenous people save the rainforest. And I've been to different places around the rainforest, and I've planted trees and been all over Honduras and Haiti. And I've met the people that I support, and so I know where the money goes. And I'm really good at giving money to places that go, and it goes a long way. I don't really get involved in really big organizations, because I feel like a lot of the money is wasted on administration and stuff like that. So I like kind of the guerrilla NGOs, and so I pick the people that I pick to support are people that I really know very, very well, and they're highly recommended. And I have a new kind of offshoot foundation that I'm working with. Actually, I came up with it with Julian Assange. It's called Tenure, and it's based on academic tenure. So we pick 10 activists a year for 10 years, and we can pay their salaries. And so that we're encouraging people to be career activists instead of having to have a job to support your family, like maybe at Starbucks or some kind of other job. And we're giving people salaries to continue to be activists. And this is kind of a new thing, and I think it's going to be the most important thing that I do. And this is just getting off the ground now.
And on a brief overview, how does that work, the business of activism? Because obviously, when you're in a movie or you're acting, you get paid for that. But when you're an activist, how do you get paid for that? Like, how is that someone's job? If you're paying them, like, where's that funded from?
Well, I don't get paid for being an activist.
You pay your
I'm lucky. Well, I was very smart. I invested wisely. I invested my money in real estate, and I rented out my place. And I don't really need. I live with my boyfriend in France, and my parents were the first thing I did with my career is make sure my parents are taken care of. So they're fine, and my kids are on their own. So I don't need much. I'm fortunate that I put myself in a position where I rent my house out in Malibu, and I travel around the world causing trouble, and I like it. I mean, I think, like, people do. There is an activism business that I really don't like. I do see people kind of flying around in private planes and taking donations and kind of making this fancy gala lifestyle where they're raising money, and a lot of the money's going into just having this kind of fancy lifestyle and giving each other awards. And I'm not really into all that. I like to be able to speak at certain places. I have spoken at different galas about important issues, but yes, I understand there can be a business about it. But I've donated a lot of my own money, but I've also been able to raise enough money and to be able to look after myself in other ways.
I love that you paint that picture that way, because that means that us here, we can do that too. It's not like, oh, that's Pamela Anderson, she can do that. We can do that. We can rent out our home. We can be frugal in other ways, so we can do the things that are important to us.
It almost killed me to build my house in Malibu, but then to rent it out just feels like success. I really saw myself in France. I really saw building that house. You have to visualize how you're going to achieve something, and I knew that when I built my house, I was going to rent it out, that my kids were going to be great, that I was going to be able to go to France, I was going to be able to be more in a European position where I could affect more change internationally and speak at different governments. And I just really saw this. I saw this as my future for my whole life. I really knew that I was going to do something like this. It hasn't just, not that it's calculated, but I had a vision. I visualized it.
Right over there, you have a question.
Hi, my name is John. I'm an actor as well, and it's really cool to hear you talking about your family and just maintaining that normalcy through your whole life. Like, people I've always sort of idolized are people like Paul Newman, and just sort of maintain that stability in his life. So knowing that acting and the industry can be sort of up and down, what is your advice to other actors to maintain stability and normalcy in something that's not such an always normal career?
Well, I look at my son, who's having quite a wild, interesting, fun, exciting life, and I try and tell him to, I mean, we shouldn't live above our means, but then we should live above our means. Like I have a friend who said, if you don't have any money, go take a limo somewhere. You really have to live like you're, I don't know why, it's not good advice, that's not good advice. But he's John Peters, he actually produced A Star Is Born, so he did something right. I really just think you have to keep on learning and engage in the world, not just about your career, but it also can make you a better actor if you go to museums, if you get involved in something. My boyfriend right now, he's a soccer player. He plays for Marseille. They're actually playing right now, so hopefully they're winning. And he's been a professional athlete for 15 years and hasn't really done anything with his platform. And so now he's actually really engaging in violence against women, and he's supporting causes in France that are something that he can get behind, that he's passionate about, and that he sees a need for. You have to give your life some meaning, and that really helps. And also, look after your parents, look after your family, and keep them close. That always helps to keep you grounded. Your mother's always going to tell you what you really are, and so are your kids.
Yeah, you mentioned that a lot. You talk about. Do you have a further question?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
You talk about that a lot, about family. Was family always important to you? Did you know family would be always important to you? Did that evolve? How did that come about?
The thing is, I think like with families, like with really good friends, I have really great friends, but it's not like we talk every single day, or we're in each other's face, or anyone's hovering over each other. I'm not like a hovering kind of mother. My mother let me do whatever I want. She's only supported me. My mom and dad have obviously look at my life and my career. They've always been there for me, no matter what I've chosen to do. And their advice to me is always, you'll know what to do. So that's my advice to my kids too, is you'll know what to do. I'm just here, I'm here if you need me, but I'm not telling you what to do. Because you get to build your own life. You don't get to do what I'm telling you to do. I just wanted to make sure when they were kids that they did well in school, that they had all the opportunities that they could have. So they had the opportunity to go to university or they have all the choices, and they chose to be in the arts. But I didn't want them to think that their only choice was to be an artist because their parents were. So I made sure that they did everything. And now they're thankful for it. But at the time, they were, I was a bit pushy maybe.
You don't strike me as somebody who would live with regrets, but when you look back at some of the things that have happened in your career and even in, I guess, your personal life that became part of the professional life, do you go, oh, I would have done that differently? Because without those things, you wouldn't be where you are in this moment now. But is there stuff that you'd be like, okay, people, if this happens to you, don't do that, or do this?
I don't have any regrets. I've had a pretty fun, wild life, and I want to still continue having a fun, kind of romantic life, which is, kind of edgy and different, and I just, like I said, don't follow everybody else. We're all meant to do something different, and we need unique thinkers. So I encourage people to be brave and really stick their neck out and talk about things that they might not be politically correct. We need to find a new way of doing things, and it's not going to be the way that we all think it was. You're not going to find it in any textbook. And, it's already too late, so we might as well just go crazy and find a new way. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just, going to keep talking, keep doing what I'm doing, trying to save as many animals as I can, and encourage other people to find what their passion is and do the same.
As a positive person, how do you spin a negative situation? Because I feel like you've done that a lot.
There's spun anything. It's negative or positive.
Pivot, not like. You're
giving me too much credit. But life is life. Everyone has kind of if you're a celebrity, your life is all over the place. People see it, and they don't know the ins and outs of it all. They don't know the subtleties and the nuances and everything that goes on behind closed doors. You have an opinion about it, but your neighbor's living just as crazy life or crazier. So you can't judge. But if you're in the spotlight, you do have a responsibility to use that platform to be productive and efficient and to realize your dreams. We're all artists, really, and artists are the freedom fighters of the world. And that's where we're going to find the answers, in our imagination.
Right over there.
How are you?
Hi. Good. Thanks.
Hi, so much.
Jet lagged.
My name is Alina. Yes. I'm from Russia. And as you might know that mostly we have Russian movies in my country, and it was closed for several years. But one of American movies that was broadcasted, it was with you. It was Baywatch. and you are the star there, and everyone knows you. And I was wondering what it is for you to be a star.
Lord, I don't know. It's hard to think of yourself as a star because you know, but it's. I mean, like I said, you have to use your platform. If you've been given some kind of attention, you should really use it for good. I'm lucky to have gone to Russia many times. I've spoken at the Kremlin. Recently wrote a letter to President Putin, who's just releasing the whales from the whale prison. And they'd captured all these whales to sell off to China. And with all this, now he's actually going to release them back into the wild, which is great. And you know, my mom.
You wrote him, and did he respond to you?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yes.
First of all, the first letters that I wrote him, and then when I was at the Kremlin, we discussed the importation of seal products because I'm obviously very against the Canadian seal hunt, and I know that sometimes it's a touchy subject, especially when you're in Canada. But I think it's terrible and brutal and everything, and so he made it illegal to import seal products into Russia, and that was 99% of the market. So that helped kind of slow down the seal hunt, even though it still exists. We still need to push hard and make sure that ends soon because it's 2019. We don't need to be killing baby seals. And recently, the whale prison. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that they captured a lot of whales in Vladivostok, and I've spoken at Vladivostok on a green economy. And really, you know, the environment is tied to the economy, and we need a green economy. And it's, you know, you should really follow Vivienne Westwood's blog. She's brilliant when it comes to this. She's fantastic, and she uses her platform, which is clothes and fashion, to get her message across. And she's incredible. She's a great mentor and influence to me.
If we go to your website, we can see that there's ways to get involved. But as we wrap this up here, what would you recommend that us here can do to make an impact and make a difference, either through your foundation or a cause that we can find to be passionate about?
Well, you have to find what you're passionate about, and what's your purpose on this earth. Is it really just here to exist, or you know, your job, or whatever it is? We have to find out there's something more that you're being called to do because you're alive, and then when you find that, if it's vulnerable people, if it's women, if it's children, if it's refugees, if it's veganism, if it's animal rights, you know, we know that factory farming is the leading cause of global warming, and you see all these children's protests now, which is really inspiring. And I love that kids are speaking up, and these kids are just fantastic because they're right. Governments aren't doing enough, and so we all have to do it together.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for joining us with this conversation. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Oh.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
You're talking about being an activist on certain roles. One of the things that I'd be have more attention to is the fashion industry. And how I guess I used to say we had 4 seasons. Now we seem to have abundance, and obviously you probably know what I'm talking about, and how we just, these fibers that don't break down, and it's becoming more of a problem. And you're talking about Vivienne Westwood and how all this fashion is just becoming a landfill that doesn't break down into our industry or into our resources, just like makeup and all of this stuff, that we're just becoming more materialistic. So I'm not sure if you can respond to that, but that's a kind of a thing that you're looking at the fashion people, what they're doing, they're also kind of the problem too.
Yeah, I know, but she's actually, thank you for that question, because she's one of the first people to say buy less, you know, buy one good thing a year, don't consume so much, and don't fall for all the trappings of all the, you know, consumerism, just buying, that we really don't need everything that we're purchasing. And you're right, just endless stuff. But the fashion industry is turning around. Everyone seems to be saying no to fur, like Givenchy, Gucci, all these different organizations. PETA's actually been really influential in getting people to stop using fur. I had a fur line that I was using, you know, recycled plastic. There's all these new fibers that are made out of recycled materials and materials that break down easier. So people are wising up in the fashion industry, which is really inspiring. But you're right, everybody's a hypocrite. You know, we have to do the best we can, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and try and do better, because it's going to take a lot of sacrifice on everybody's part to make a difference, as You know, as the planet heats up, there'll be less and less inhabitable spaces. We'll have more war. There'll be water shortages, and you know, it's a real issue. So we all have to take it very seriously.
Before we end on that note, what's probably one small step we can all do to start making a difference? Because when you talk about stuff like that, that just sounds so big, and I think, what can I do? And somebody might be like, what can I do that's so big? One small thing. What do you think we could all just leave and be like, that's the one small thing we can start on?
I think embrace experiences instead of consuming things, purchasing things, and also, you know, maybe don't eat meat today. Try not to buy something with plastic. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to get through a day without using plastic or a plastic straw that's going to end up in a turtle's nose. I mean, really, if there's so many things you can do. So just be a little more conscious, because everything you do has a repercussion. It's either going to be good or bad, and it might as well be good.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. This is Pamela Anderson. If you want to see her and talk to her in person, she would be at her table right on this side of the hall. We're going to take a little break. We'll be right back in a few minutes. But everybody, Pamela Anderson.
Thank you.